Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1889. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in beautiful Mooresville, North Carolina, with a very special guest by the name of John Hotchkis. John, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have it in gear? And are you ready to release the clutch?
Mark, I am totally in gear and can't wait to delve into this. And hey, thanks for having me on Cars Yeah. Really appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. Kind of funny to be asking you that question. A guy who's been in many race cars, many tracks, you know how to release a clutch and go. But before we dive into that and what you're doing today with this great business of yours, what's one little thing that maybe most people don't know about you, John?
That's a great question. And one thing people don't know about me is that I had a tremendous bout with cancer in 2009 and 2010.
Oh.
And I survived synovial sarcoma in my foot.
Oh, my gosh.
And but in order to do that, I became an amputee. So my throttle foot is actually prosthetic. And I had to learn to walk again.
Oh, my gosh.
And surf and paddleboard and do all the things that I love, but ride bikes But young kids at the time, and I did everything I could to survive, and that was part of it. And so that's something that few know, because I try to make sure I walk just like everybody else.
Well, you know, it's an amazing story, and thank goodness you're still with us. You're a cancer survivor. My mother's I believe now, I don't want to age her, she might get mad at me, but 40-plus year cancer survivor from a long time ago. And wow, to go through that at a young age and then have it afflict part of what your career was, your throttle foot, is incredible. Share with me, and you know, one of the questions I ask people is a great challenge. Obviously, that was a huge challenge, but what's the biggest lesson that unfortunate situation taught you?
Well, it really taught me to anytime. Well, I can back up a slight bit and just say anybody that's had cancer, been told the news that they have cancer. I mean, it's just absolutely devastating, and just that word itself.
Right.
But then you kind of pull yourself up and say, okay, what are my options and how do we go forward? And it really was a point in my life where I said, look, even though things will change a lot, I have plenty more to do. I mean, I love the automotive industry, love my family, my friends, everything. Driving has always been my passion. And as you know, as a guy who really knows cars and so on, I love shifting. And I learned to drive stick shift with my father, and we'll talk more about him later. But anyway, he was a finance guy, but a racer also, and we talk so much about downshifting and heeling and towing and matching the revs and everything else. So my right foot was really important to me, and I remember getting back into I had a BMW at the time, and trying to drive a manual stick shift, and my doctor said, well, you won't do that anymore. And once that happened, I said, yes, I certainly will.
Wrong.
But having no feeling in my right foot,
Right.
Where's the brake? Where's the throttle? It took a little while, and it was actually scary to drive just on streets, because I could push the throttle, but I didn't know how to use the brake, the clutch, and come to a stop, and also do the clutch on a hill and so on. But as racers and car guys and people who adapt, I figured it out. And so now although I can't heel and tow anymore, but I can right and left foot brake, and I can use the clutch, and I can pretty much drive anything with a stick shift and
Cool.
and do it confidently.
The adaptability of humans is absolutely incredible, and we see that when you think about athletes who have amputated limbs, even other normal, regular people who have that happen to them through some kind of thing, whether they're veterans or cancer or whatever it might be, and they go out and do amazing things. It's just you have to wanna. And it sounds like to me that's exactly what you did. So I appreciate you sharing a really personal side of your life with us and giving our listeners some inspiration. Heaven forbid anybody listening is going through that, but boy, a lot of people have to, and there is a lot of hope and a lot of life on the other side. So thank you for sharing that. Let me give you a proper introduction. We're going to dive into this incredible career and business that you have. John Hotchkis is the president and CEO of Hotchkis Sport Suspension, a performance aftermarket product company he founded in the early 90s. John and his team design and build high-quality performance suspension products engineered to perform and designed to be strong. Sounds like John. Their total vehicle suspension, they call TVS packages, are developed and tuned to eliminate poor ride quality and disappointing handling that often results from mismatched components from multiple manufacturers. John has competed in numerous classes of motorsports, including the 24-hour Le Mans. We just came off of that last weekend. Congratulations to the Toyota folks. They just keep on coming. 5 Daytona 24-hour races, 3 Sebring 12-hour events. He's driven Porsche 962s, Porsche RSRs, Spice Group C prototypes, and competed in IMSA GTO and SCCA Trans Am races and the British Formula 3 Series. We'll be back in just a minute to learn more about John and his business, but first a word from our valued sponsors, so keep the seatbelts on. We're moving fast with John here at Cars Yeah. Hang tight. Summer is here, and that means long, hot days. Oh boy. Covercraft's UVS custom sunscreens are quality made and are incredibly fast and easy to use. Your UVS sunscreen is custom tailored for your vehicle, and their accordion design ensures easy storage. Not only do they protect your dash and interior for maximum protection while parking in the sun, sunscreens keep your vehicle's interior significantly cooler. They are durable, they're dependable for years of use. I have one for all my vehicles. Every time I park my car, my Covercraft sunscreen goes up in the window. You can choose from a variety of colors, including the original, Premier Series, and Carhartt designs. Your sunscreen is manufactured with the quality and attention to detail that's been the standard for Covercraft since 1965. And they make a really great gift as well. Get your summer deal today. Use the code YEAH21, YEAH21 at covercraft.com and you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. That's right, 10% off. Use the code YEAH21 at checkout. Covercraft, protecting the things that move you. When it was time to renew my collector car policy, my carrier raised my rates by a lot. But why? My usage was the same, my car's value was the same, and I had never made a claim. I didn't even have a ticket. The only change was their rate, and they had no reason why. What's with that? I researched my options, I spoke to others, and with American Collectors Insurance is where I now have my policy. What a difference. A live person actually answers the phone. She spent time learning about me and my Porsche Turbo, the one I call my Orange Crush, and provided a reasonable quote. American Collectors Insurance now protects my special ride. I'm saving hundreds of dollars and I can sleep at night knowing my baby is properly insured. Why wait until your next premium is due? Give them a call today for your personal agreed value quote. Call 866-AC1-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. Tell them you're a friend of mine, Mark Green at Cars Yeah. American Collectors Insurance, classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors, automotive enthusiasts just like you and me. That's American Collectors Insurance. All right, John, let's dive a little deeper in the corner, something no doubt you've done many, many times. I want to go back in time, though, before we jump into Hotchkis Sports Suspensions, because you graduated from the Art Center College of Design and you went off and started racing, and now you kind of come back around and taken that education, if you will, and you're designing sports suspension. So you kind of did things in a very different way here, but kind of walk us through your career path, and then we'll dive into what you're doing today.
Mark, I was always into cars, and whatever. Well, I could say my parents. They looked at me and said, "What in the world? How did we create this?"
Where did this come from?
Exactly, because my father, again, he was always in finance and in mutual funds, and he worked in downtown Los Angeles, and the last thing he ever wanted to do was have a company that had inventory, as he would tell me all the time when he visited me later on after I'd started my company. My mom was a English major and loved art and so on, but they weren't car or mechanical people. And somehow I just loved cars, loved engines, modified everything I ever could. Of course, took everything apart, sometimes not being able to put it back together.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, it had so much fun as a child with bicycles and whatever else. And then my father really had chance to go to Riverside Raceway with some friends who had a BMW 2002 race car and also a 69 Corvette. And he watched them drive, and I'll never forget what he said. He said they got out of the car and it was like they were on cloud nine. He never could imagine somebody would have so much adrenaline rush and be having such a good time. And then he said, well, I'd like to try that. So anyway, he rented a car from a guy named Dick Gullstrand, who actually that's how I started in the performance aftermarket, is working for Dick Gullstrand. He rented a Corvair from Dick Gullstrand and went around Big Willow Springs. And I think this is probably on the first lap, got to turn 2, and which is actually fairly fast. Luckily, he was just coming out of the pits. Anyway, tire fell off. He went upside down slowly.
Uh-oh.
And he once he released the belts, he, of course, hit his head on the roof of the car, being upside down. And then he kind of dramatized it by saying, that I could smell the fuel and I was just about to blow up. Well, he arrived home after all that and was absolutely addicted. He just said, I need to do this racing thing. And that started, a couple of decades of the most incredible races and experiences in my mind. So I had a huge foundation even before I arrived at Art Center.
Well, Dick Gullstrand, he was known as Mr. Corvette, right?
He was Mr. Corvette, and I'll tell you, he rescued me because race car drivers, you're always looking for the next deal and the next sponsor. And I competed in 2 years of British Formula 3, which was absolutely fantastic. Johnny Herbert, Martin Donnelly, Bertrand Gachot, Roland Ratzenberger, Scott Stringfellow. His father had Stringfellows and the Hippodrome. I was surrounded by the most amazing drivers at the time, Perry McCarthy, and it just goes on and on. After 2 years of that and living in England and establishing great friendships and racing in Spa and Zandvoort and all the British tracks, I think it covered about 25,000 miles just going to circuits in 1988, just on the road. But anyway, arrived back into the U.S. and I said, okay, I'm next. It's Formula Atlantic or Indy Lights and whatever else I could do. And I just couldn't get enough money together. And I remember my father telling me that Corvair story. So I called Dick Gullstrand up, just a kind of a cold call. And because he, being in Thunder Alley and the father of the Corvette and so on, and sat down with him and told him what I was doing and that I'd been to Art Center. And then he said, well, why don't you do some test driving for us and we'll see if you can find a place here. Mm-hmm. And I worked my way into as the director of marketing and designed a catalog and packaging. And we went to the first SEMA show together in 1989.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
And he was an incredible mentor to me. And most company owners wouldn't just say, well, here's my Rolodex. I guess I'm aging myself, but
oh yeah, I had one of those.
Here's my Rolodex, and you have everybody, but oh god, Herb Fischel from GM, and
wow.
on and on and on, and he said, go for it. Let's see, how you can help and really market what I'm doing, and it was an absolute. I did that for 2 years, and it was just absolutely amazing time.
It's incredible. You mentioned Perry McCarthy, of course, the original Stig. He's a Cars Yeah alumni of yours now. He was a guest on the show. What a character he is. But it sounds like, I mean, he offered you a neat opportunity to take your creative side and tie it into racing, which then ended up putting you in the seat of some absolutely incredible cars. I mean, my goodness, when I think about the cars that you drive, and we're going to touch on those a little bit later, but the 962s, the RSRs, Spice Group Cs, which I saw run when I was living in Del Mar around the race or the fairgrounds there, actually, which was pretty cool. It's how I got my wife interested in racing, took her to a real race instead of a TV race, and she went, "This is fun. Those are cool. I like that." But let's fast forward into past the racing time when you said, okay, I'm going to stop racing and I'm going to do something kind of fun, and something fun, starting your Hotchkis sports suspension company. Now you're kind of bringing it all back around, going back to those early days of your Bachelor of Science degree in transportation design. And you're a very hands-on guy when it comes to your business and designing, testing, engineering, and marketing. So what drove you into, excuse the pun, Hotchkis sports suspensions?
Well, it was really working at Gulfstream Engineering, because I had always modified cars and trucks when I was younger, but I had no idea that the SEMA show existed, and that people loved to this extent modifying their cars. Mm-hmm. And so at Gulfstream Engineering, I worked in sales and customer service and R&D. And
it was like your MBA, wasn't it?
It really was.
Yeah,
it really was. So I could use my design skills from Art Center and do ads and marketing and everything else. And then I would get on the phone with these customers, and whether it was a Corvette or Camaro, El Camino, whatever it was, they were so excited. And then the fax machine was a big deal back then. And yeah. And we'd fax them pages of the catalog, because we'd have to mail them a catalog. Mm-hmm. But they'd be so excited, Mark. They'd say, "I can't wait for that. Can you just fax me that page so I can see what I'm buying and what I can do?" And the people loved it. They just loved talking about their cars. And I always told Dick Goldstrand that he needed just a bunch of car psychiatrists in a room, and he could probably charge for that.
Yeah,
because they would talk about paint, they would talk about rear ends, and they would talk about how they bought their car. And to this day, my sales group is on the phone constantly with people that just love talking about what their projects and what they're going to do, and and what they've done, and really that really got me into this industry, because it's not like calling the doctor or the dentist or having to go and do something that you know is necessary but you don't really want to.
Right. Yeah.
So this is an absolute want industry that is just supercharged with great people, and Dick had a small catalog, a small parts department. I built that up and really learned from the ground floor about putting products together and packaging and sourcing and sending them to people. So that really was my MBA, and from that, I jumped into my own company.
You mentioned going to the doctor. I have many friends who will call me, and when I answer, the first thing they say is the doctor in, which is code for, what are you planning on doing to your car or buying right now? And they always say, talk me out of this. And most of the time I don't, of course. I'm a terrible doctor. I just, encourage the habit. Just put the needle in deeper. But this is a really cool story, because it ties you into what you're doing now, and your website is fantastic. I mean, you guys design and develop and engineer and craft suspension systems for classic muscle cars, modern muscle cars, trucks, SUVs, sports compacts, European. I mean, you kind of cover the gamut.
We really do. We look at whatever's fun to drive, and we follow our customers' lead. And if they have something that they would want to handle better and be much more fun to drive, then we'll do that. I'll give you a quick example. So you wouldn't know that in 1965 and 66 Galaxy 500 would be something that people would modify and want great handling. But this is probably more than 10 years ago. Jay Leno, who is a friend because he's such a great car guy, he asked me if we would develop suspension for his 65 Galaxy. And this was a car that he's 7-liter. Roush built him a 7-liter just a beautiful fuel-injected engine with a Tremec 6-speed. And he really wanted today's Galaxy because it reminded him of the car he purchased with his father so many years ago, where he checked all the boxes and didn't check the boxes, so it was too loud for his dad, who was a salesman, but Jay loved it. But he not long, I think a lot long after they had it, he crashed it and totaled it. So long story short, he wanted a car that reminded him of his father, of his childhood, but something he could drive. So we did the suspension on it. He loves driving it. Handles more like a BMW M3 than a giant
U.S.
big
monster car,
than a car full of chrome and gigantic body panels. That transpired into a ton of Galaxy owners modifying their cars, and we've sold so many more Galaxy kits than I could ever imagine because of that. And so our market is not just Camaro and Mustang and so on, but it's really a broad base of cars that people just want to handle better, and they want to have much more fun and a great driving experience.
You know, I think what's really cool about what you're doing is what you guys call the TVS, total vehicle suspension, because lots of times when us car guys get our new cars, we start with wheels, we maybe do stereo systems. I go back dating myself now. But then we go, I want to lower the ride height, or I want to put stiffer bars in the car or something. And all these different components that weren't really designed to work together can sometimes result in kind of messing things up. And I always say you go back to, I like German cars, of course, Porsches, BMWs. Well, those engineers are pretty smart, but they're trying to design something for everyone. And typically people don't like stiff suspensions or lowered ride heights. But you guys have a complete package, which I think is really important.
Well, that really just manifested itself from my racing days, because if you stick a microphone in front of a driver at the end of the race and say, either why did you win or why didn't you win, generally it's my car handled better. It's not that they had more horsepower, because of course we always want more horsepower, but horsepower is plentiful. But handling and making sure a car handles well and is safe and is really fun to drive is important. And it only happens if the shocks work with the springs, work with the chassis components, work with everything. So it all talk the same language, the front and the back of the car talk to each other. And then from the driver's seat, from the steering wheel, you have great input so that you know what your car is going to do, and it can be fun, whatever type of driving you do.
Absolutely. I think it's super fantastic. We're going to take a short break, thank our sponsors. We come back, I want to talk about a challenge that you faced. Could be in your racing career, could be in your business. We all face challenges, especially if you're on the track. So keep that in mind, and we'll be right back. What began as a charitable car show has grown into the world's greatest collector car auctions, raising over $133 million for charitable organizations to date. For nearly 50 years, automotive enthusiasts from all over the world have enjoyed the Barrett-Jackson collector car auctions, and I'm a huge fan. Regarded as the barometer of the collector car industry, their auctions are world-class lifestyle events where thousands of the world's most sought-after, unique, and valuable automobiles cross the block in front of a global audience, in person, on TV, or streamed online. Barrett-Jackson produces the world's greatest collector car auctions in Scottsdale, Arizona, Palm Beach, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, and new for 2021, Houston, Texas. The excitement of Barrett-Jackson auctions is contagious, and a unique experience is not to be missed. Barrett-Jackson, the world's greatest collector car auctions. Here at Cars Yeah, it's all about inspiration, and our charity of choice is TechForce Foundation, where it's all about making a positive difference in young people's lives. TechForce helps young adults discover their talents and passions for all things automotive, with a mission of helping students develop a career as a professional technician. TechForce awards nearly $2 million in scholarships every year for students to pursue technical education, and they support hands-on activities, events, and mentorships across the country, working to change the outdated perceptions of these careers. Auto techs are in high demand, but the supply of qualified technicians is critically short. They need your help to fuel their mission. Learn more and join me in supporting them at techforce.org. All right, we're back. So let's talk about a big obstacle, big challenge, big failure. I mean, kind of being a guy from the track, that's kind of part of life, right? But also business can be that way too. So wherever, and you talked about surviving cancer and dealing with that and having to learn how to redrive, use your feet again. Boy, you've been faced with a few challenges in life. Is there one in particular you might want to share that provides a great inspiration for listeners that might be facing the same thing, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not a train coming at you?
Well, I would say that the biggest challenge by far was the cancer and surviving cancer and getting the news that I probably wouldn't survive.
Oh, wow. And
in order to survive, I had to do this very drastic treatment, a year of in-hospital chemo and amputation and all the kind of complications that go with that. So that was the very biggest and the largest challenge for sure. But the being able to do what I enjoyed, because in life it's so much fun to have a great experience, and when all of a sudden you can't walk, bicycle, drive, really, so they're really pulling the rug out from you.
No kidding.
Of rug of life. And in the drive, because we're talking about cars, the driving aspect, being able to drive again was hugely important to me. And being able to drive without assisted hand controls and so on, which a lot of the doctors and everything said that's what you'll need. But if I'd had more issues, I would have had that, because I'll do whatever it takes to drive. But getting on the racetrack, I remember driving a supercharged Camaro we had. It was a 2011 Camaro. And getting back on the streets of Willow and being able to kind of figure out how to drive and how to downshift and brake and really go through the corners well. That put a smile on my face that was absolutely incredible. So the challenge, learning to drive, and obviously had some business challenges, as we all do. And the big recession of 2008 and 2009 was a big wake-up call to make the business more efficient, and because we all lost a ton of business in that time. But the core business stayed there. The muscle car market stayed, and we're better because of that. And you fast forward to COVID, the pandemic. Same thing. We were so lucky that in North Carolina we didn't have to close, that we kept going and kept producing product, because the result of the pandemic is people are ordering car parts and hobby products like never before.
Yeah, they're staying in their garage and having fun. Yeah,
it's an amazing time, and we're back ordered with our products just like everybody else with all these supply issues. But people are excited, and so the challenge of the pandemic has been trying to get product to people. But the great part about all of this is I think people have really discovered their cars. Not that they didn't know how important projects were for them, but they've been at home and they've been working on their cars, and so I really believe that we'll once we get our supply issues all set, that this industry will be strong for some time.
Well, you and everyone else, it's never ending. I've been trying to buy some things. I'm doing some work in my yard, and the products I need are coming out of Canada, and I went to buy them. They're pavers for a big patio project, and then the lady said, can't get them. Pandemic. I don't know when we're going to get them, So yeah, it's never ending. But you're going back to your cancer story. I had Sam Schmidt, of course, Sam from IndyCar driving. You talk with him and the positivity in his voice, despite what he's been through. And I just saw a recent interview with him where he talks about, I don't even look at this challenge in this wheelchair anymore, because now they figured out a way for me to drive. If you recall, they figured out a way for him to drive using his breath. Just blew me away. Incredible. But the positivity, and that's what I hear in your voice, John, is the positivity of life and the lesson learned through going through something so tragic like that, but figuring out a way to do it. You're a true inspiration to all of us. So thank you again for sharing that and for being such a cool guy. I like to ask people about special vehicles in their life. It's almost a silly question because when I go through, and I ran through it at the beginning, the cars you've been able to drive, British Formula 3, Porsche 962s, RSR, spicy prototype cars. I mean, running at Le Mans, Daytona, Sebring. Oh my gosh, you've driven some insane cars. If I can narrow it down to one great car in your past, this might be your first car. I don't know. Which one was it and why?
So I can't narrow it down. You sent me that question, and I'm thinking, okay, what could this be?
Yeah.
I've definitely had some special cars in my life. The cars, as you mentioned, that have raced, but I'll run through quickly a few of the cars and why. 1971 Camaro we built back in 1999 and 2000, and it was the first Camaro with a LS engine. It had an LS1 in it, a Tremec 6-speed, and 315 rear tires and 275s on the front. And it really started a pro touring, really majorly modified American car market. It really built it to handle incredibly well, and that was a car that sadly, as some do, I needed equipment, and so I sold that car. But it's on a few owners since then. It's beautiful orange, and it resides in Phoenix, Arizona, with a great owner that autocrosses and drives it all the time. The 73 RSR, we still have that, and my father and his partner Bob Kirby bought that car in 1976 from a guy named Bob Harmon. Factory 73 RSR.
Oh my gosh.
Converted to 74 spec. And Dennis Ossie and his brother Randy prepared the car in Anaheim. It was boated over to Belgium, had Wynn's sponsorship. Wynn's brought it to Le Mans, and they raced in Le Mans in 1977. 3 drivers. They finished, I think, 23rd overall, and I believe 9th in their class. And it was the only all-American team. There were American cars and American drivers, but no car and driver combination came from America other than this one. So it was incredible. And then the 86 Porsche 962, well, my father was very fortunate. He worked super hard, and he was able to parlay his business into to have some great race cars. And he was in IMSA for a long, long time, and I was lucky enough to drive in 5 Daytona 24 hours with him. But this 86 962 was bought from Porsche Motorsports North America from Al Holbert. Delivered it.
That guy.
Delivered it to Watkins Glen, and for I want to say it was the Continental 500 in 86, and drove that in Daytona and Sebring, and went to a ton of races. It was always a Wynn-sponsored car, and so then also drove that in some historic HSR races, and finally we sold that in 2017, and now Joe Robillard owns it, and it just was at the Monterey Historics, and he keeps it in beautiful condition and drives it. And the reason we don't have it anymore is because we're not very good collectors, and being racers, it just drove us crazy that this car was in such beautiful shape but was not driving. It was just sitting there.
Is that the purple, dark blue kind of car?
The number 10
car?
One.
Yeah.
Number 10.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I've seen that thing run. It's hot. Yeah, cool.
It's a great one. My brother did some incredible things with it at Monterey and at the Porsche Rennsport reunion, and definitely missed the car, but I'm so happy that Joe is keeping it in. He said, I'm a steward of the car, and I'm keeping it better than ever. So that's great.
You guys run against Bruce Levin back in the day, Bayside?
Oh, absolutely. No, Bruce Levin, Bob Aiken, all of Dyson.
Yeah.
I attended a zillion IMSA races from when I was kind of early teens until gosh, almost 30 years old driving in the races.
I must have been channeling this talk we're going to have because I knew Bruce. He raced up here in the Vintage Group Sovereign that I raced with. I knew him for 20 plus years. Of course, sadly, we lost him a few years ago to cancer. And here's a weird deal, dear John. I had a dream last night that I was sitting at Bruce's house talking with him. And in this dream, I kept saying, but you're dead. And he just laughed and he goes, let me tell you, Mark, nothing's ever going to beat me in his typical Bruce Levin. And I woke up this morning with a bit of a smile on my face, not really sadness, because that guy lived life to the nth degree. He was a wild man, as you know, because you raced against him and encountered him. But it was so bizarre that I would dream about him, talking about business, cars, and so forth. And he had a couple 962s sitting in his garage. Isn't that wild? Wow. Weird where your mind goes when you're asleep, right?
What a personality. He was great. And he would, whenever I saw him, he wouldn't just shake your hand. He'd give you this big bear hug.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. He was a guy that lived life to the nth degree. And yeah, he admittedly, he made some mistakes and did some things in life he wished he'd done differently. And he knew how to live and he knew how to drive too.
He really did. And his cars he prepared were just beautiful. I remember the pinstripe paint job and all the things he did. And it always said trash is cash on the side of his car, which I loved.
He had a black 80s Porsche Turbo and the license plate said garbage. And this typical Bruce Levin, I said, Bruce, why would you put garbage on the back of a Porsche Turbo? He goes, when I started making money in the garbage business, I bought myself that Turbo. So I figured, well, garbage bought the Turbo. So that's why I put it back there. He also had a Woody that was this beautiful. He loved hot rods. And he had this beautiful Woody. And the license plate said termites. So give you a little bit of Bruce Levin's humor and sense of humor that he had. Wow. Incredible cars you've been able to drive. I think it's really cool, which leads me into my next question. And that is, if you were manifest as a vehicle, what would John be? But more importantly, why?
Oh, well, I have two answers.
Okay.
First, I would say I would be a 64 Ferrari GTO.
Okay.
Because fast, purposeful, no frills, and a beautiful design. And I really am a sucker for front-engine Ferraris.
Who isn't?
But a 71 Ferrari Daytona would be great in the garage one day. But now with a little more mileage under my belt, I think I would be a brand new Porsche GT3 Touring. Because super fast, comfortable, slightly understated appearance without the big wing.
Yep.
And where the GTO would be amazing, but it wouldn't be that comfortable to drive very far. Now I want to do some driving adventures and to be a Porsche Touring. You could go anywhere. You'd be reliable, super fast, and I think it would be an amazing experience.
I love that car. I'm not a wing guy, and I get it with the GT3s if you're a track guy, but I just had this debate this weekend with somebody about, they've come into some money. What should I buy? A GT3 RS, a GT3, or a Turbo S? And I said, well, how are you going to use the car? Are you going to do track stuff? He goes, no. I go, well, don't get a GT3 RS then, because you'll hate it on the road. Buy a Turbo S. Much more comfortable, and that's kind of the way I look at the GT3 Touring. You can take it on the road and enjoy it, but probably people would argue, well, yeah, if you're going to compare it to a turbo, that's going to be more comfortable. But I love the whole concept of that GT3 Touring. So very nice choice. I like to ask my guests how they give back. I know that you served 2 terms on the SEMA board. I mean, little did you think, going back to that first SEMA show, you'd end up on the board. But you also chair the SEMA PAC. And I'd love for you to talk just kind of briefly what that means, because you go to Washington, D.C., and you fight for people like us in the car industry so we can keep doing what we're doing. I just read this in the new Sports Car Market magazine, how the state of Maine is outlawing a certain type of vehicle, collector vehicle, that they used to allow. And all of a sudden they've said no. And most people would go, well, who's ever going to own one of those? It's a little Japanese truck type vehicle. But that's where these things start. And that's where they start ticking away, right?
Mark, you're absolutely right. And serving on the SEMA board was so great. It was such an honor to work with incredible people in our industry and be able to really delve into not only kind of the problems or the issues at the moment, but have a good vision, as a board member should be, as far as what's happening in the future. And that's what led me to the SEMA PAC, because after my second term on the board was over, I said, I'm going to devote my energy when I'm not in the office to SEMA PAC and go to Washington and talk to our lawmakers and work with the incredible SEMA staff that's only a few blocks from the White House. And because it's absolutely true, now more than ever, there are issues, and it's a time where we need to focus and make sure that our voice is heard so that we can still do our hobby, that we can modify our cars, because it's not just our cars, but it's our trucks, it's off-road, it's racing, and it's anything to do with the freedom to drive wherever you want, obviously within reason and legally, but to personalize your vehicle. And when we talk about the new Green Deal, we talk about whatever this is, Mark, there are people in Washington, elected officials that I've spoken with, that don't have any idea that people like cars, that people enjoy driving cars, that people modify cars. They have no idea what a big business this is and how passionate it is for so many. And so from a stroke of a pen, they could say, well, we're going all electric and we're going autonomous and we're nobody can touch anything. And they'd think that would be a good thing because they're saving us from ourselves, so to speak.
Right.
and not knowing that there is a performance industry, not knowing anything. So, and other people jump on and go, hey, great idea, save the public, they won't crash anymore and so on. Yeah. And so, but we have to be there to combat that. And so we have to support the lawmakers that support our industry. And there's so many lawmakers, like so many others, that have great car stories, that have cars. And SEMA in Washington, D.C. determines whether on both sides of the aisle, who the people will support us in the Senate and the Congress. We support them and make sure that they will kind of carry our message through the halls of Congress and so on. Regulation and legislation is really the number one thing that SEMA feels is going to be harmful to our industry. And if you just imagine, let's say bumper height rules, light rules, or that's for either lowering or raising a car or truck. And then also just the fact of any little, let's say you can't tune the car anymore. So you lock the electronics. Well, we should be able to tune to the aftermarket can always better improve what the manufacturer supplies, because the manufacturer, regardless of what kind of car, it's only developed for kind of the 50th percentile driver and so on. And so the fact that we can, as an industry, can make cars better, we should be allowed to make cars better within a standard. But to just shut everything off would be heartbreaking and not something we're going to allow to happen. And that's why it's so important to be involved.
Bravo. Awesome. I'm so happy you are. How about a great book that you've read that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Oh, I have a list of books. And number one is The Unfair Advantage by Mark Donohue. And really his story and talking about the way he raced. Because I was lucky enough to have seen that kind of era of racing as a kid, where you had a small transporter, small shop, and you had to be so resourceful as compared to today's world. But Mark, being a Brown educated engineer and just amazing driver, just so versatile, incredible book talking about the development of Can-Am cars, Camaro, Porsches, and more. So great one. And then Speed with Style, the Peter Revson story. Always a fan of Peter Revson, and he came from a whole different background than Mark Donohue, but achieved the same type of results on the track. And whether it's in McLaren Formula One or Can-Am or Trans Am, whatever Peter drove, he was super quick. So another great book. And the movie Rush was based on the Niki Lauda story From Hell and Back. And the fact that Niki Lauda could have that huge crash and be so burned and have the will to come back from that, another great one. And then A Racer's Racer by Bobby Allison. Bobby Allison has become a really great friend. I didn't mention a couple of cars, but one of them I own is Bobby Allison's '86 Buick Grand National. Ooh. And it took me years to buy it from him, and I see him often, and I go over to his house and we'll talk cars and racing. And Mark, that be able to sit in his living room and have a beer and hear about Bobby Allison. I've read his book, but getting this firsthand from him, it's one of those occasions where you just don't want it to stop.
Yes.
When he says, "Okay, John, that's enough stories," it's almost deflating. So wait a minute.
Wait, we're just getting started. Yeah, tell me more.
Exactly. The fact that he drove Indy cars, and a lot of people don't realize that he was for Team Penske. He was faster than the IndyCar guys at the time. The fact he tested the UOP Shadow and was super fast at Riverside and Can-Am car testing, and he was such a versatile driver that people say he was just a stock car driver, but he had an amazing gift of speed in any type of car.
Definitely the racer's racer. I love it. So I'm going to take you on the ultimate drive here, John. Before I let you go, you mentioned earlier that GT3 Touring may be the car you pick. You get to pick any vehicle. You get to pick anybody to have in the car with you, living or deceased, and you get to be going anywhere, driving anywhere you want to drive. So what does the ultimate drive look like for John Hotchkis?
Well, I would drive with Bobby Allison. And okay. The reason
get more stories.
I get more stories, and it was a few years ago. We went to a car show, and there were three of us, and I said, "Bobby, sit in front," and he said, "No, I wanted to stretch out and sit in back." And I don't remember what type of car we had, but it was not very big. Actually, it was a new Challenger. So he's back there, and friend in the passenger seat. We both pull our seats up so Bobby has plenty of room. And he told us more stories, and then he told us the Davy Allison about the helicopter crash. And I'll tell you, there was not a dry eye in that car. Mm-hmm. And he went into detail on how he felt, and then also having Clifford die racing, so two sons, and it was so moving, so incredible, and the fact that he would even talk about it. So I would definitely like to talk to him more about that. I'd be driving the GT3 Touring or the Buick Grand National, and I'd want something fast and fun, but also not too loud because I'd like to hear Bobby.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, man, that would be fun. I love it. John, I could talk to you forever, and maybe we have you come back and we talk more at some time in the future. But before I let you go, could you share maybe some parting words of wisdom, life, mantra, or a success quote with us that means something to you?
Well, I would say really believe in your mission. So be persistent, hire great people, be consistent, and really love what you do. And I think that from this pandemic, that really rings true more and more. And it's certainly the way that I have lived.
Well, it's the way to live life, that's for sure. You figured out the secret sauce to life. I think you figured out that a long time ago. Maybe it was that first trip to the racetrack with your dad that set the course for that. What are some ways that people can follow along and learn more about your business?
Well, it is really easy. I mean, we're all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and just type in Hotchkis, but only one S, HOTCHKIS, or go to hotchkiss.net, and you can see our products and descriptions. We have videos. Go to YouTube as well, and so we make it easy. We make it all Hotchkis, and then you can always give us a call, and you can call me too at 562-907-7757. and I will. We'll all answer your questions and talk more about the aftermarket. Make sure your car is really handling well, and we'll go from there.
It sounds like fun. Listeners, you can find everything on John's show notes page here on the Cars Yeah website. As you can tell, a very spirited, inspiring guy who loves what he does. So check it out at hotchkis.net. I want to do a shout out to and a thank you to Kendra Sommer at CWK Media for introducing me to John and getting him on the show. Thank you, Kendra. Kendra is a guest here on Cars Yeah. You can go back and listen to her show. John, thanks for being so generous today with your time and expertise and sharing your passionate past and a future and a current life with us today. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you down the road.
Mark, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
This was a lot of fun. Linkage. It's a new quarterly publication and website that covers the automotive market, driving, restoring, collecting, and discovering your passion for motor vehicles. Linkage is about experiences, opinions, and values. Linkage is an actual informed, reasoned opinion based on first-hand experiences. A talented linkage team covers the automotive world, the people who share your passion and mine, smart, considered, rational, and experienced opinions, ones you can learn from and grow. That includes our passion that drives auctions and the collector car market. So come with me and join us on this journey. And be sure to use the code CARSYEAH when you subscribe, and they'll give you $10 off. Boom! Linkage, geared for the automotive life. Subscribe today at linkagemag.com.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.